How you begin your morning isn't just a detail, it's a declaration. Before the noise of the world creeps in, before distractions steal your focus or pressure twists your clarity, there is a brief window where your mindset is untouched, raw, and powerful. The Stoics understood that a great life doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design, starting from the moment you open your eyes. They didn't see mornings as a rush or a chore. They saw them as a sacred space, a daily chance to align with virtue, to cultivate discipline, and to reconnect with what matters most. In a time where people check their phones before checking in with themselves, the ability to craft a purposeful morning isn't just helpful, it's revolutionary. In this episode, you'll learn 10 Stoic-aligned practices to help you reclaim your mornings, not with rigid perfection, but with calm, clarity, and control. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently before the day begins to shape you. If you're ready to start living your mornings and your life with intention, subscribe to Stoic Reflections. Like this video to affirm your commitment to a stronger start, and drop a comment sharing the one habit you'll adopt first. Let's begin. Number 1, discover your Ikigai. Your reason for waking up before you check the time. Before you reach for your phone or start planning your to-do list, stop and ask yourself a deeper question. Why am I waking up today? The Stoic doesn't rise for mere routine. He rises with intention. And one of the most powerful ways to ground that intention is by reflecting on your Ikigai, a Japanese concept that resonates deeply with Stoic purpose. Ikigai is your reason for being, your reason for waking up, your intersection between passion, talent, service, and livelihood. It's not just poetic, it's practical, because when you anchor your day in what truly matters to you, every action becomes more focused, more alive, more meaningful. The Stoics weren't interested in busyness. They were interested in essence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he wasn't born for luxury, for sleep, or for distraction. He was born to fulfill a duty, to serve a higher purpose. Seneca warned against drifting through life without aim, comparing it to a ship sailing without a destination. And Epictetus taught that only the disciplined mind, rooted in principle, could live with clarity and peace. All of this begins with knowing why you're alive. And that's exactly what Ikigai invites you to explore. To find your Ikigai, reflect honestly. What do you love doing? Not because it's popular, but because it lights a fire in you? What are you naturally skilled at, even when no one's watching? What does the world around you need? What pain, what chaos, what disconnection can you help heal? And finally, how can you do this in a way that sustains you? When these 4 dimensions align, you find a force stronger than discipline alone. You find devotion. The mornings you wake up in service to that devotion feel different. There's less hesitation, less noise, more resolve. And this doesn't mean you need all the answers today. It means you wake up seeking them. You journal, you reflect, you question what you're giving your time to, and whether it aligns with your deeper direction. You start noticing when you feel alive, when your energy is highest, and where your work touches something meaningful. That process, daily, honest, intentional, brings you closer to a life you don't need to escape from. So tomorrow morning, before you step into motion, step into purpose. Ask, what am I here to do? What will I move toward today that actually matters? Let your Ikigai guide your decisions, shape your habits, and quiet the chaos. Because a man who knows his reason for waking up doesn't need motivation. He has something stronger. He has direction, and from that, everything else begins to align. Number 2, prepare the night before. Win tomorrow tonight. A powerful morning doesn't begin in the morning, it begins the night before. What you do before you sleep shapes who you are when you wake. The Stoic understands that discipline isn't something you turn on when the sun rises. It's something you live, especially when no one's watching. Seneca spoke often about the value of nightly reflection, examining your actions, your thoughts, your emotional responses, not to dwell, but to prepare. Because clarity before sleep builds momentum before dawn. Most people treat nighttime like an escape. They numb themselves with screens, overstimulate their minds, avoid reflection, and then wonder why their mornings feel foggy and chaotic. But the Stoic takes the opposite approach. He winds down with intention. He limits digital noise because he knows his first thoughts in the morning are shaped by his last thoughts at night. He doesn't carry unfinished tasks to bed. He writes them down, defines tomorrow's priorities, and releases the mental clutter. This is not a ritual of control. It's a practice of release. You end the day not in tension, but in direction. Preparation isn't just planning. It's positioning yourself for victory. When you lay out your clothes, clean your environment, or set your alarm with purpose, you are sending a message to your future self. You will wake with clarity, and when your environment supports your intentions, discipline becomes easier. The Stoic isn't reactive. He is ready, because readiness is built in the quiet moments before the world begins again. Sleep itself becomes sacred. It is not an indulgence, but a strategy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that even rest serves the greater purpose of returning to his duties with strength. That means going to bed not with guilt or restlessness, but with resolve. You earned your rest because you lived deliberately, and now you rest to return stronger. That shift in perspective changes how you view your evenings. They're no longer wasted hours. They're your launch pad. So before you sleep tonight, take back control. Review your day, close open loops, write tomorrow's mission, clear your space, and most importantly, put your body and mind into a state of calm readiness. Because tomorrow's success isn't decided by luck or motivation. It's decided by whether or not you were prepared. The Stoic doesn't rise in reaction. He rises from strategy. And that strategy begins tonight. Quiet, simple, focused. That's how you win the morning, by owning the night. Number 3, avoid morning distractions. Protect your first hour. The first hour of your morning is sacred. It sets the emotional tone, the mental rhythm, and the psychological strength for everything that follows. And yet, most people give it away carelessly. They wake up and immediately reach for their phones. Emails, news, social media, messages. Before their feet even touch the ground, their attention is hijacked. Their clarity is gone. Their focus is scattered. The Stoic rejects this completely. He understands that the first hour is not for the world, it's for him. A protected morning is not a luxury. It is essential for a mind that seeks calm, power, and control. Seneca warned against being pulled in every direction by the noise of others. He spoke of the importance of claiming your own time and guarding it with vigilance. The same applies now more than ever. When you check your phone the moment you wake, you are no longer living. You're reacting. You're not setting the pace. You're letting external forces dictate your inner world. The Stoic knows that this creates emotional fragility, and emotional fragility leads to mental chaos. Protecting your first hour means drawing a line between you and the world's noise. No phone, no notifications, no emails. Not until you've anchored yourself. Use that hour to nourish your body, focus your thoughts, and prepare your mindset. Meditate, journal, reflect on your values, move your body. Rehearse your day with clarity and precision. This isn't ritual, it's fortification. You are building a mental armor so that when the day's pressures arrive, they bounce off instead of breaking through. Even Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with endless demands, reminded himself each morning to return to reason, to calm, to self-mastery. If a man ruling an empire could create space before facing the world, so can you. Your first hour doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be intentional, because what you do first becomes the anchor for everything else. If you begin with noise, you carry noise. If you begin with purpose, you carry purpose. This practice isn't about perfection. It's about protection. It's about understanding that every day, your focus is a resource, and you can either give it away or invest it. The Stoic invests it in what builds him: stillness, clarity, preparation. And the reward? A day lived with more control, less stress, and greater alignment. So take back your first hour, defend it, honor it, and you'll begin to notice that when the world finally gets your attention, you're ready, not reactive, not rushed, ready. That is the power of a protected mind, and it starts with the decision to reclaim the beginning. every single day. Number 4, wake up consistently. Discipline begins with routine. There's a quiet strength in waking up at the same time every day. It may seem simple, even mundane, but the Stoic understands that greatness is not built in occasional intensity. It's built in daily rhythm. The decision to wake consistently isn't about chasing productivity. It's about cultivating discipline. Because when you choose to rise at the same hour, regardless of mood, weather, or circumstance, you are training your will to obey reason over emotion. And that obedience, over time, becomes inner power. Most people let their mornings be decided by how they feel. If they're tired, they sleep in. If they're stressed, they delay. But the Stoic doesn't ask, "Do I feel like getting up?" He asks, "What is the right thing to do?" Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" That work isn't just about career. It's about duty, about fulfilling the role you were made for. And the day cannot be lived with strength if it begins with hesitation. Consistency isn't glamorous. It's not celebrated, but it is transformational. When you rise at the same time, you stop starting your day in chaos. Your body learns the rhythm, your mind adjusts, your internal world becomes anchored. That stability allows you to think more clearly, to act more decisively, and to carry yourself with calm through the unpredictable storms of life. The man who owns his morning owns his direction, and the man who rises on command, not on comfort, becomes dangerous in the best way. But this discipline must be protected. It starts the night before, with intentional rest, with preparation, with a mindset that understands the first battle of the day is the alarm clock. And when you win that battle, when you rise on time, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned, you carry that momentum into everything else. Each act of discipline builds on the last. You become the kind of person who follows through, who acts regardless of mood, who builds trust with himself. That's how consistency shapes identity. So set your time, commit to it, and when the resistance shows up, when the mind begs for just 5 more minutes, you answer with movement, you rise, not just from sleep, but from weakness, from hesitation, from the noise that says delay is harmless. Because the Stoic knows, the way you begin is the way you continue. And a man who rises with discipline every day builds a life that reflects it, calm, deliberate, and unshakable. Number 5, take it easy on yourself. Self-compassion is strength. Stoicism is not about perfection. It's not about suppressing emotion, nor is it about turning yourself into a machine that never stumbles, never hesitates, never feels fatigue. The true Stoic understands that the road to inner mastery is paved not only with discipline, but with compassion. Some mornings you will rise strong. Other mornings you will feel off, tired, unmotivated, maybe even lost. And in those moments, the greatest strength is not in punishing yourself, but in forgiving yourself and continuing anyway. The Stoic doesn't confuse resilience with harshness. He knows that rigidity breaks, but flexibility bends and returns. Epictetus taught that we should treat ourselves as we would a dear friend, not with indulgence, but with patience, with understanding, and with firm encouragement. Self-compassion is not weakness. It is the capacity to meet your flaws, your failures, and your slower days with a mindset that says, "This does not define me." You learn, you adjust, you move forward. When you make a mistake, when you snooze the alarm, when you don't follow the routine perfectly, the untrained mind slips into self-criticism. That internal voice becomes toxic. You're failing again. You'll never be consistent. You're weak. But the Stoic trains a different voice, one that says, "Yes, you fell short. So what will you do now?" That shift from shame to responsibility is where real growth lives. Because the goal is not to never fall. The goal is to rise faster, wiser, cleaner. Taking it easy on yourself doesn't mean abandoning standards. It means humanizing them. It means recognizing that resilience includes recovery, that calm includes kindness, that a broken routine is not a broken identity. When you respond to your low moments with reflection instead of self-punishment, you're building a kind of stability that no streak, schedule, or system can ever give you. And that stability echoes forward. It makes you more consistent in the long term because you're not constantly cycling between extremes of intensity and collapse. You become steady, grounded, capable of facing the day with both structure and softness. That's the Stoic edge, the ability to demand more from yourself without destroying yourself in the process. So on those mornings when your energy dips, when your clarity blurs, don't spiral. Pause. Breathe. Remind yourself that this is part of the path. Reconnect with your values and begin again, gently but firmly. Because the man who can show himself grace without losing his grip on purpose is not fragile. He is forged. And his calm, born from that quiet strength, will carry him further than any rigid routine ever could. Number 6, win the first battles. Start with small disciplines. The first hour of your morning is filled with battles, and they're not dramatic. They're subtle. They're silent. But they shape your entire day. The battle against the snooze button, the battle to make your bed instead of leaving it messy, the battle to drink water before reaching for caffeine. These might seem trivial, but the Stoic knows they are not. Because discipline is not built in big declarations. It's built in the small private victories that no one else sees, but that define who you become. Seneca wrote that we must govern ourselves with purpose from the beginning of the day. That means the moment you open your eyes, you are already making choices that either strengthen or weaken your character. And the truth is, if you lose the first battles, you lose momentum. You start the day negotiating with yourself, delaying, avoiding, and that mindset spreads. But if you win those first small fights, even just one, you activate a chain reaction. Your mind shifts into command, and that command becomes momentum. Start small. Make your bed. Not because it's a trend, but because it tells your brain, I finish what I start. Move your alarm across the room. Not because it's clever, but because it removes the temptation to delay. Stretch your body. Take 5 calm breaths. Do something, anything that affirms, I am in control. The task itself is secondary. What matters is the message you send to yourself, that you lead, not your impulses, that your values act first, not your excuses. The Stoic doesn't wait for motivation to win these battles. He prepares for them. He sees the morning not as a blank slate, but as a field. Every small discipline, performed repeatedly, becomes a signal to the mind. This is who I am now. And from that identity flows more powerful action. You don't need to conquer the whole day by 8 a.m. You just need to start by conquering yourself. And yes, some mornings you'll lose a battle. That's fine. The key is to notice, recalibrate, and reclaim the next one. Miss the bed? Win with breath work, delay stretching. Win by showing up at the desk without distraction. Stack the wins. No perfection, just repetition, just momentum. Because every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. The man who wins the first battles doesn't need the world to push him. He's already moving, already awake, not just physically, but mentally. And that movement, born from silent victory, becomes his foundation. Not flashy, not complicated, just consistent, just strong. That is Stoic discipline in motion. And it begins not later, not when the world demands it, but now. Quiet, simple, relentless. Number 7, find an accountability partner. Don't walk alone. The Stoic path is inward, yes, but it is never meant to be isolated. While self-mastery begins within, its strength multiplies when shared with others who walk the same path. The idea of the lone, silent figure rising above the chaos alone may sound noble, but it's incomplete. Even the greatest Stoic minds, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, understood the power of companionship, of counsel, of mutual elevation. Because growth is not just a private mission, it's a shared journey. And if you're serious about changing your mornings, your mindset, your life, you don't have to do it alone. In fact, you shouldn't. An accountability partner isn't someone who lectures you. It's someone who holds the mirror up when you forget who you said you wanted to be. It's someone who doesn't need to motivate you with hype, but reminds you with truth. The Stoics call this koinonia, a fellowship of rational beings striving for virtue. It's a relationship built on honesty, not comfort, respect, not approval, growth, not ego. When you commit to your morning discipline alone, it's easier to negotiate with yourself, to drift, to compromise. But when you tell someone else, I'm waking at 6, I'm meditating, I'm journaling, I'm training my mind before the day trains me, suddenly your standards take on weight. You're not performing, you're aligning, and that external structure creates internal follow-through. Because now when you're tempted to snooze, to skip, to delay, you remember someone's expecting you to show up. This isn't about pressure, it's about partnership. Your accountability partner isn't perfect, and they're not there to judge. They're there to walk beside you, to remind you of your own words when your excuses start to sound convincing, to ask the right questions, to share the struggle, and to celebrate not just results but effort, repetition, alignment. Find someone who shares your values, not someone chasing hype, but someone committed to steady refinement. It could be a friend, a mentor, or even a virtual connection. You can check in each morning, share your small wins, reflect on what worked, what didn't, encourage each other without enabling softness. This practice turns the isolated battle of self-discipline into a bonded pursuit of higher ground. The Stoic doesn't isolate himself out of pride. He chooses his circle wisely, because iron sharpens iron, and the man who walks with others walking toward the same fire walks faster, farther, and with greater resolve. So ask yourself today, who am I walking with? Who can hold me to my standards when I'm tempted to fall below them? Find that person, reach out, build the rhythm. And remember, Stoicism may begin alone in thought, but it finds its power when lived in unity. Don't walk alone. Walk with purpose and with someone who demands the same. Number 8, remember death. Memento Mori, live with urgency. Each morning is a gift you've been given, but not one you were owed. The Stoics faced this reality without fear, without denial, and without illusion. They reminded themselves daily of a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You will die. Not to create panic, but to create purpose. Memento Mori, remember that you will die, is not a morbid phrase. It's a powerful lens through which life becomes sharper, richer, and more meaningful. Because when you remember that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on what doesn't matter. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This isn't poetic, it's practical. When you wake up and remember death, your petty arguments lose their grip. Your excuses sound weaker. Your distractions feel hollow. Because there's a clock ticking that no one can see, and every hour you waste in avoidance, fear, or passivity is an hour you never get back. The Stoic doesn't wait to be reminded by tragedy. He reminds himself. Every morning, quietly, firmly, with courage. And this remembrance isn't meant to create sadness. It's meant to bring urgency. Suddenly, your morning routine isn't just about discipline. It's about honoring life. The breath you take before dawn is not guaranteed tomorrow. So what will you do with it today? Will you reach for your phone, or will you reach for your purpose? Will you sleep through the first hour, or live through it, fully awake, fully aware that time is a non-renewable resource? Memento Mori helps you focus, not on more activity, but on the right activity. It cuts through the noise. It reminds you that forgiveness should not be postponed, that love should not be assumed, that your mission should not be delayed. Because one day, maybe soon, you won't get another chance. And no one knows when that day will come. The Stoic prepares for it, not with dread, but with alignment. He lives in such a way that if today were his last, he would meet it not with regret, but with peace. Begin each morning with this reflection. If this is the last sunrise I see, will I be proud of how I show up today? Let that question guide your thoughts. Let it shape your choices. Let it humble your ego and sharpen your focus. Because the man who remembers death every morning doesn't live in fear. He lives in truth. And that truth gives him an edge. It gives him presence. It gives him power. The kind of power that turns every moment into something sacred. So don't run from death. Let it walk beside you, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Let it remind you to act now, to speak now, to build now, because life is short. But meaning? Meaning is immediate, for those who dare to live with urgency. That's the Stoic's edge. That's the reason he doesn't drift. He remembers what others forget. And in doing so, he becomes fully, unmistakably alive. Number 9, practice negative visualization. Prepare for life's tests. Most people start their day hoping everything will go smoothly. The Stoic starts his day by preparing for when it doesn't. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. It's called negative visualization, and it's one of the most practical, powerful tools the Stoics use to maintain their calm no matter what life threw at them. Instead of avoiding discomfort or pretending bad things won't happen, they imagine those possibilities in advance, deliberately with clarity and composure. Not to panic, but to build resilience, because the man who rehearses adversity doesn't crumble when it arrives. He responds. Epictetus taught that before we act, we should pause and ask, what could go wrong? Not as a fearful hesitation, but as a training exercise for the mind. If someone insults you, will you overreact or will you remain grounded? If your plans get disrupted, will you collapse or adapt? If you lose money, face rejection, hear bad news, will you become bitter or better? The Stoic mentally rehearses these moments before they come, so that when they do, he's already practiced his piece. This practice isn't about expecting the worst in everything. It's about building a mindset that's unshaken by surprise. When you visualize what might go wrong, you prepare emotionally, mentally, and morally. You remind yourself that you don't control events. You control your attitude toward them. And when those imagined difficulties actually happen, your response is not fear, it's familiarity. You've been here before. You've thought through your values. You've chosen your response before life demanded it. Negative visualization also deepens your appreciation for what you have. When you imagine losing what you take for granted, your health, your time, your loved ones, you begin to treat them with more care, more presence, more gratitude. This is where the practice becomes transformative. It doesn't just prepare you for pain, it sharpens your sense of purpose. You stop floating through life expecting ease and start walking with awareness, composure, and gratitude, even in the face of discomfort. To apply this, take a moment each morning to sit in silence and ask yourself, what might go wrong today? What challenges might I face? What interruptions, insults, delays, or disappointments could occur? Then answer, how will I respond? What kind of man do I want to be in those moments? Visualize yourself remaining calm, acting with integrity, staying grounded. See yourself choosing the higher path, regardless of the pressure. This exercise doesn't take long, but done consistently, it rewires your instincts, it conditions your character, it makes your peace proactive, not reactive. That's why the Stoic practices it, not out of paranoia, but out of preparation, because life is full of tests. And the man who trains his mind before the exam doesn't fear the result. He shows up ready, calm, focused, unshakable. And that readiness, quiet, disciplined, deliberate, is what separates those who break from those who become stronger. Number 10, end the day with gratitude, prime tomorrow with peace. The way you end your day shapes how you meet the next. While many stumble into sleep distracted, bitter, or numb by noise, the Stoic chooses to close the day with clarity. He doesn't collapse into the night. He arrives at it with intention. And one of the most transformative practices the Stoics embraced was gratitude, not as a fleeting emotion, but as a discipline. Seneca wrote that we should reflect each evening, not only on what went wrong, but on what went right. Because gratitude is not just the recognition of blessings, it's the sharpening of perspective. It's how the mind returns to balance. When you pause at the end of your day to notice what was good, what held meaning, what you learned, what you overcame, you are not ignoring the hard parts, you're balancing them. You're refusing to let your challenges define the entire story. And in doing that, you prime your brain to rest not in stress, but in strength. Sleep then becomes not an escape, but a closing ritual, a chance to end the day with grace. Gratitude also rewires your attention. Most people fall asleep thinking about what went wrong, what they regret, what they fear, what they didn't accomplish. The Stoic doesn't let his mind drift unchecked. He steers it, gently but firmly, toward recognition. Maybe it was a moment of silence, a kind word, a task completed, a difficult emotion faced with maturity. No matter how small, he acknowledges it. And in that acknowledgement, he reaffirms his values. He reminds himself, I am on the path, I am still building, and even this, especially this, is part of the work. You don't need a long routine, a simple journal, a quiet breath, a few minutes of reflection. Ask, what did I handle well today? What did I learn? What am I thankful for? Not in general, but specifically today. These questions bring the mind out of reaction and into awareness. They remind you that progress isn't always loud, that growth isn't always visible, that every day holds something worth noticing if you're disciplined enough to see it. And here's the deeper truth. Gratitude isn't about forcing positivity. It's about training your vision. It's about building an eye for what sustains you. Because the man who sees clearly what is already good in his life becomes harder to shake. He doesn't cling. He doesn't chase. He moves through the world with a kind of quiet steadiness because he already recognizes value where others overlook it. So tonight, before you close your eyes, close your day on purpose. Don't let your mind be hijacked by unfinished tasks or unchecked anxieties. Guide it. Ground it. End with gratitude, not to ignore the weight you carry, but to remember that you're still walking with strength, that you're still in the fight, and that tomorrow when it comes, we'll meet a man who is ready because he ended today with peace. That is Stoic power. That is how you end strong and begin again stronger. Your morning isn't just a start, it's a statement. Every choice you make before the world even wakes up is a quiet declaration of who you are and who you are becoming. The Stoics knew that if you can win the morning, you can shape the day. And if you shape enough days, you shape your life. These 10 practices aren't habits for show. They are tools for clarity, weapons for discipline, rituals for peace. From discovering your reason for waking to ending your day with gratitude, each action becomes a thread that weaves strength, focus, and purpose into your identity. But don't try to do all 10 at once. Start with one. Build slowly. Let it become part of who you are. The Stoic isn't chasing the perfect routine. He's becoming the kind of man who shows up, who adjusts, who commits, and who keeps walking the path even when no one's watching. That's how momentum is built. That's how stillness is earned. That's how transformation begins. Not in noise, but in consistency. So if this episode helped bring more structure, more purpose, or more calm into your mornings, subscribe to Stoic Reflections, like this video to affirm your commitment, and drop a comment sharing which morning practice you're starting with. The path is yours now. Walk it with strength. And tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, when the distractions call, when your comfort begs for 5 more minutes, you'll know what to do. Because you're not just waking up, you're rising.